The smartphone in your pocket, or in your hand, if you're watching this show on this, may have one unexpected benefit. It can help your loved ones remember you after your death. Your texts, emails, pictures, and posts tell your story from your perspective. But when you die, where does all that data go? Who can claim it? And how would that even work? Well, this week, Apple began letting users designate contacts to access their iCloud accounts. It's called a legacy contact. That person will need a special access key and a copy of your death certificate. This feature requires the latest software update, iOS version 15.2. So once you update, it's pretty easy to pick a legacy contact. First, go to the Settings app. That's the gray icon that looks like a set of gears. Tap your name at the top, select Password and Security, and then select Legacy Contact. You can choose up to 5 people that are in your phone's contacts. Most of the major social media platforms have similar options. Facebook users can set a legacy contact or have their page memorialized after they die. Instagram has its own memorial option. Google, which owns YouTube, has an inactive account manager setting. That lets users choose who may access their information and when. For Twitter, you can request access after someone dies. It's quite a sign of the times, right? But what other digital preparations should you make for the end of your life? Let's discuss that with Jim Lamb. He's an estate planning attorney based out of Minneapolis. Mr. Lamb, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
This is kind of a wild topic. It makes sense, but it's something I never thought I'd have to be thinking about. When did this begin to become a thing? Have you noticed in your practice or from other attorneys that deal with estates and trusts that data began to become a growing issue?
Yeah, about a dozen years ago or so, this really started popping up for us. Most of the time when somebody passes away, we would go to their house, work with the family to watch the mail for their paper records, and we'd just go through the things we could touch and feel. But nowadays, a lot of our property is stored online. Our records are stored online. We get account statements by email or by an app. And so it's harder to find those things if you don't know what you're looking for.
How different is it dealing with digital assets of a decedent versus physical assets? I mean, is this an area that the law has even contemplated and gives guidance on, or are you kind of having to figure this out case by case?
Well, about 10 years ago, there really wasn't any law at all in place on this. And so, if we have real estate, stocks and bonds and bank accounts, we have a well-established, hundreds-of-year-old procedure for dealing with that. But with the electronic assets, there was a mismatch between state laws for when you became incapacitated, when you pass away, and then the federal privacy laws for electronic communications. So about 5 or 6 years ago, we started rolling out a Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. And that really provided a procedure for if you become incapacitated or after you die, for your representatives in your family to come forward and have a process for collecting your emails and other online account data in a reasonably easy way. These features like Apple and Google and Facebook have offered even make that a step easier.
What about other kinds of digital assets like virtual currencies? We're seeing more about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and assets that are stored like non-fungible tokens, NFTs. Is this kind of a similar sort of planning, or are there other considerations?
That's a great question, because things like your virtual currencies or non-fungible tokens, they are completely different. If you don't plan ahead for those, it can be practically impossible to transfer them. Those rely on encryption, scrambling up some kind of data, and you have to have a private key, some kind of password that enables you to transfer it. And if you don't remember it, it's not like you can go to the bank or to your investment company and say, I forgot my password, would you reset it for me? There isn't a central location where you can do that. So planning ahead for your virtual currency is critically important. First of all, we need to know that you have it. Second, we need to know how to access it, or otherwise it could be lost forever.
I can't help thinking, and this is kind of a sensitive question, but I think it's going to come up for real. There are some things on your phone that you might not want other people to look at over your shoulder, if you take
That's
my
exactly
meaning.
right.
But exactly. Before I have to let you go, what about those kinds of nuances? I mean, we're talking about really personal, super private stuff that sometimes people only share with strangers online that they may not even want their families to have. So maybe I want you to have the songs that I've got on Apple Music or Spotify, but I don't necessarily want you to have my links and my pictures. How do you deal with that sensitive data that maybe you don't want everyone to see before we go?
Yes, have a separate account for those things. So if you have your bank statements, your credit card statements in one account, an email account, make sure your private things are in a separate email account and don't provide the password for that. Or even better, put in your will that
Jim
you would
Lamb,
like that
estate
account
planning
deleted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thoughts, sir. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, have that account be deleted in your will. So.
Understood. Understood. This is really fascinating. I appreciate you making time to talk to us about it. Jim Lamb, an estate planning attorney. Mr. Lamb, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.